perceiving the higher perspective of every situation. Dear Ascending Ones, please know that there will be no accidents from this point on. At this point in your ascension process, everything that happens in your life is your creation. Because your consciousness is now resonating to the threshold to the fifth dimension, every random thought and emotion will become manifest. Because you still hold a physical form, your manifestations will still appear to be bound by time. However, the energy patterns of your consciousness will serve to either connect you to New Earth or beyond, or confine you to the third/fourth dimensional version of Earth. Because we can observe your thoughts and emotions, we can see the shifting energy patterns of your auras as you shift in and out of your multidimensional self. Therefore, we wish to assist you in learning to perceive and attend to the higher perspective of every situation. As you are well aware, fear-based emotions lower your energy field. In order to rise above the fear, it is best to refuse to participate in any thought, emotion or situation that lower your consciousness to the third/fourth dimensional concept of fear. From the perspective of the fifth dimension and beyond, third-dimensional Earth is a holographic projection, a virtual reality game. However, the copies of your multidimensional self that logged into the 3D matrix to assist Gaia have become trapped in the appearance of what they have learned to believe is real. Therefore, in order to log out of this matrix, you will need to realize that the third dimension is not real. Remember your multidimensional self. Download your multidimensional self into your Earth vessel. Allow the galactic light to activate your multidimensional operating system. Connect and integrate that multidimensional system into your physical computer brain. Allow your multidimensional self to take control of the helm of your Earth vessel. Your new captain, who is yourself, is newly arrived from the higher frequencies of reality. Therefore, this you cannot be trapped by the 3D illusions, because that you is not separated, limited or indoctrinations of myriad third-dimensional incarnations. This expression of yourself is new to the 3D game. Therefore, all of your multidimensional abilities are 100% operational. At first, the integration of the multidimensional light, unity consciousness and unconditional love into your 3D brain, which has been limping along at 3 to 5% efficiency, causes great fatigue and confusion. But gradually, or suddenly, you are a different person, with different desires, choices, thoughts and emotions. Of course, this integration has been going on for quite some time for our Ascending Ones. However, with the eclipse, the Venus transit, the many solar flares and the latest full moon, more and more of you are completing, or have completed, your integration process. Was this process completed, your multidimensional consciousness will no longer accept the obvious lies and illusions that were normal for your third-dimensional consciousness. You still have periods of falling into your 3D consciousness, which usually occur when your Earth vessel has become fatigued. Fortunately, once the habit of being third-dimensional is replaced by the habit of being multidimensional, the fatigue will greatly diminish. When being multidimensional is normal, interdimensional communication is normal, interdimensional travel is normal, and interdimensional thoughts and emotions are normal. Hence, perceiving reality from a higher perspective can become natural. One of the first things that occur when your multidimensional consciousness takes command is that you can instantly differentiate between fear-based and love-based energy patterns. These energy patterns can be within, or emanating from, yourself or others. You will also able to perceive the many energy patterns that are scattered about your reality. The perception of these energy patterns will most likely be initially experienced via your clairsentience. Therefore, traveling through your world will be similar to swimming in the ocean or a lake, in that some areas will feel cold and uncomfortable and others will feel warm and cozy. At first, you may not be able to interact with or transmute these energy patterns. However, you will be conscious of these patterns, and very conscious of all your own thoughts and emotions. With your higher self in control, you can no longer hide in "it's not my fault." Of course, it is not your fault, as fault is a third-dimensional concept. However, it is your choice. Hence, it is vital that you remember to love and forgive yourself unconditionally. You are making a huge perceptual shift within a very short amount of your time. Never underestimate the power of habit. For myriad lifetimes you have judged and reprimanded yourself very harshly because that is what you learned from your family and your society. It is very important that you are kind to your newly developing self. You are similar to a small chick just out of its shell. However, your mother is invisible to your 3D perceptions. Thus, the first part of your new self that you want to fully activate is your multidimensional perceptions. With your clairaudience, you can easily hear your /our "we are all one" voice. With your clairvoyance, you can see your /our multidimensional forms and worlds. With your clairsentience, you sense when you are being overlooked and guided. With your telekinesis, you are learning to manipulate your reality with your mind. With your telepathy, you are communicating with your thoughts and emotions. You are, also, releasing your attachment to time and the separation/limitation that time creates. Hence, your higher senses are revealing the many possible and probable realities that float through your multidimensional world. Which of these realities will you choose to perceive? Would you like to choose the highest frequency of each possible reality? Or do you feel your mission still lies with ascending Earth? In fact, because you are now multidimensional, you can do both. You can actively participate in the ascension process, which feels much like going to work, and go home to the higher frequencies of reality when you are complete with that experience. In other words, you can serve the process of ascension and simultaneously be ascended. The problem that many of you are having is that you get stuck in the habit of third-dimensional thought while you are choosing to participate in the physical, ascending reality. You are forgetting that you are no longer trapped in that world. You are not the victim to that world in any way, except habit. If you always put your left shoe on first, then suddenly had to put your right shoe on first, you would constantly start with your left foot, then have to change that habit. For myriad incarnation you have been suffering what they did to you. You were correct, as they did to many horrible things. In fact, you all have post-traumatic stress disorder from the myriad past life memories. Of course, these lives are only in the past in your time-bound third-dimensional world. However, as time is collapsing into the now, all the many memories of being third-dimensional are coming into this now. Fortunately, your higher expression of yourself, who is now in charge of your life on planet Earth, is here to heal and release these old memories. Also, since you are all just learning your new operating system, you may not yet be able to always be conscious of your every thought and emotion. However, once you have rested, eaten, meditated, exercised, seen a friend, and/or had some hugs and kisses to regenerate, you will be able to clearly understand why you were using your old 3D operating system. Unfortunately, if your behavior stems from your unconscious, you cannot change it, as you don't know the source of that behavior. On the other hand, Your multidimensional self is not fooled by the illusions and lights of the 3D game. Once these illusions are lifted from your conscious and unconscious mind, you can decide to step out of the illusion and into the truth. This is where your attachment to 3D dramas becomes apparent. Since you volunteered to stay with the starship Earth as she takes her maiden voyage to her fifth-dimensional home, you will remain in the world of illusions while they are transformed into truths. Fortunately, your self is guiding your way. Just as your multidimensional self can perceive the third-dimensional reality through the perceptions of your Earth vessel, you can perceive the third-dimensional world through the perceptions of your multidimensional self. It is through this higher perception that you become an ascended master visiting the reality that you have volunteered to assist with the process of planetary ascension. One of the ways that you will assist will be to refuse to feed the illusions and lights with your attention and, especially, with your fear. Those who have ruled your world are not of our ancestry. We, your galactic and celestial family, have long ascended beyond the need to dominate others. However, the clones that are the soulless ones of those who created them, only have the power that you give them. They derive actual substance and sustenance from your fear and from all fear-based energy patterns. On the other hand, they start under the power of your unconditional love. When you perceive the actions of these ones from the perspective of your physical self, it is almost impossible to not react in an angry, fearful or sorrowful manner. However, when you perceive these ones as we see them, you see dark astral parasites that can only survive by the fear-based energy that you send them. We recommend that you only perceive them in this fashion from your fifth-dimensional perspective, as their energy patterns are quite disruptive to your Earth vessel. Therefore, please protect your Earth vessel from this perception by engaging in this vision only from your higher perspective. Furthermore, your multidimensional self holds no judgment or fear towards these lost ones. Also, they see them not as an enemy, but as an empty shell that is filled only by the fear of others. Through the perspective of yourself, you can't think of your visit to this physical life as a final chapter in your journey into third/fourth dimensional form. Your thoughts are based not on fear or being the victim, but on the multidimensional love that you have gained during your amazing experience of life on Earth. You are grateful for the many lessons you have learned and experiences you have had while you played this game. When your thoughts are free of judgment towards yourself, others, or even the lost ones, your memory of your myriad multidimensional lives returns. Then you will have dreams, visions and experiences of other lives on other frequencies of realities and other worlds. These experiences become stronger and stronger as you become more and more emotionally content with your daily life. Eventually you begin to feel like you are living in two, or more, world within the now of your being. At this point, an important choice must be made. If you engage too much of your attention on your multidimensional self, you will lift off and ascend home. In other words, you will log out of the 3D game. Some of you will happily make this choice. On the other hand, some of you want to remain on ascending Gaia for the photo finish. If you make that choice, we'll have to carefully balance your multidimensional experiences/perceptions with your third-dimensional experiences/perceptions, so that you do no lift off and go home yet. Some of you want to assist Gaia in preparing for the final act of planetary ascension by raising your frequency and contributing that expansion of self to your Mother Earth. This is also a choice. In fact, many of the grounded expressions of our galactic and celestial family have made that choice. We, your family, have chosen to inhabit an Earth vessel specifically to help our dear sister Gaia cross the finish line with all of her inhabitants. we see that she has long served many galactic civilizations that once came to her schoolroom Earth. Now, we wish to serve her